The Republic of Ireland against Serbia is live on Off the Ball tonight. Stephen Doyle is on commentary duty alongside Stewie Byrne. He's with us now. Stephen, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, Ger. Morning, Owen. Morning, everybody.
What has your research shown about what we can expect from our opponents tonight? Where are they going to cause some trouble for us?
Well, I'm afraid it's going to be probably how they caused us trouble when we played them in Belgrade back in March and beat us by 3-2. You might remember young striker by the name of Vlahovic, just 21 years of age, plays for Fiorentina. And he's kind of the next new hot talent for Serbia. He scored the opening goal before half-time to make it 1-0. To 1-1, because Alan Brown obviously had scored for us. But basically, Alexander Mitrovic, who bagged a couple of goals against Luxembourg in their game at the weekend. They beat Luxembourg by 4-1. He's got a broken cheekbone by all accounts now. He did say, apparently, to the Serbian media that he's okay to play. As you know, these Serbs are made of tough stuff, and it takes a lot for a player like Alexander Mitrovic to be ruled out of a match. So he said he's okay. Now, whether they're going to take a risk on him, I suppose they do have to think about sending him back to his club as well. And it might seem a bit foolhardy if they're to play a guy with a serious injury like that. But if he doesn't play, they've got a ready-made replacement in Vlahovic to come on, and he is really quick. He gets on, he likes to get between the centre backs, get on the shoulder of the defenders, and he's a really good goal scorer. If Mitrovic plays, obviously he's bang in form. If you look at the list, I don't know if you've seen a list of top scorers in this tournament. He's top of the list. He scored 7 goals.
We have it up there now.
So far, Mitrovic.
So Mitrovic is 7, Lewandowski is 6, Zahavi of Israel has 6, Lukaku has 5, Memphis has 4, Harry Kane has 4, Adabuksa of Poland has 4, and Yilmaz of Turkey has 4. We don't seem to have anybody on that first page of top scorers there.
None, Ger. And actually, interestingly enough, Israel also have a guy called Dabur who's scored 3 goals. So that's 9 goals for Israel from their 2 best scorers. And it really does go to show you, if you've got a finisher in there, it's such a big help. And I think that's why it's going to be important for Callum Robinson to start for us tonight, because as I said before the game on commentary on Saturday, he's in real good form with West Brom at the moment. He's got 3 goals in his opening 3 matches. So to see him starting tonight would be a bonus. So hopefully he does. But to go back to Serbia as well, the other key man for them is Dusan Tadic, their captain, who plays for Ajax. And we've all seen Tadic in action, former Southampton player who seemed to blossom when he went to the Eredivisie club. And we've all seen him in action in the Champions League. He played a big role in Ajax getting to the semi-final that season before they got knocked out by Tottenham, who went on to play Liverpool in the Champions League final. So Tadic is man to watch. He set up the 3 goals for Serbia that night against us in Belgrade. Now, he's only had 1 assist since against Azerbaijan, but he's instrumental in their play. But then they've also got 2 guys on the left. I'm looking at their team from Luxembourg tonight. It is supposed to be they're going to start the same team, depending on Mitrovic whether he starts or not. Otherwise, it's going to be the same team. If you've got on the left-hand side, Milinkovic, Savic and Kostic on the left-hand side. And that's where they did real damage against Luxembourg on Saturday down that left-hand side. So our right-hand side is going to be really important. Missing Seamus Coleman obviously doesn't help there in that sense. But big night for Matt Doherty. So hopefully he can continue his good form. He played really well against Portugal, but that was obviously on the opposite side, and maybe not so well at the weekend. But whoever plays in front of him as well, the cover for the right back, it's going to be really important. But they're the key men. They've got good players all over the pitch, though, Jerry. You run through their side, like they've got players playing in the top flight. They got 2 centre backs, Milenkovic and Nastasic, playing their back 3. Their anchor man and their man on the left both play for Fiorentina. Vlahovic plays for Fiorentina. They've got a couple of players playing in Sevilla. It's all top flight sides. It's all top flight teams. Unlike ourselves, we're struggling to have players who are either playing for their clubs or playing at a decent level.
Although Mitrovic obviously not with a top flight club at the moment. What makes him such a good international goal scorer? I think sometimes we forget that Mitrovic is still only 26 years of age. I'm sure he's getting well paid by Fulham, even though they're in the Championship, and I'm sure he'll maybe be a Premier League striker any window now. But what is it about him that maybe we see a better version of him at international level than at club level?
He's a poor man's Diego Costa. I think that's how I'd look at him. He's an absolute nightmare to play against. He's physical. He's aggressive. He loves scrapping with a defender, but he's also a really good finisher, as we saw from outside the box against us in Belgrade. He's a very good finisher. I never understood the criticism he got well, I could understand the criticism because he wasn't scoring goals for Fulham last season in the Premier League, but I don't think Scott Parker gave him a fair crack of the whip. And the other thing as well is when he was playing for Fulham in the Premier League, he didn't have good players around him, whereas he's got that with Serbia. You know, that's such a big thing for strikers. You've got to have good players around you who are going to set you up and get you into positions where you're going to score. And in the likes of Dusan Tadic and Kostic and Milinkovic-Savic, he's got these players around him who know where to find Alexander Mitrovic. But he gets into good positions as well, and he's just a nightmare for centre-backs to go up against. Now, thankfully, we got Shane Duffy and John Egan in there, who, as we both know, like a scrap. They're well able for the physical stuff. So if they are up against Mitrovic tonight, I think they're going to be well able to handle. If they're up against Vlahovic, I might be a little bit more concerned because he's one of these players, he kind of seems to ghost into good positions without you're kind of, you turn your back for 2 seconds and all of a sudden up he pops and he's popping the ball into the net. So two very different challenges, I think, from those two strikers. But Mitrovic, yeah, I think poor man's Diego Costa is definitely the best way to describe him.
So what are we thinking changes-wise from the Republic of Ireland? And obviously Seamus Coleman is one.
Yeah, well, Seamus Coleman, the other thing as well, I think he is going to stick with the back three. The defence, I think, is one of the key things. Everybody's talking about us not being able to score goals. And if you look through the last two campaigns, the Euro 2020 qualifiers, we played 8 matches and we only conceded 5 goals in that campaign. And we played 10 matches in the World Cup qualifying campaign previous to that, and we only conceded 7 goals. We've already conceded 7 goals in 4 matches in this campaign. And I think that's something maybe that's been overlooked. We're not defending well. And I think that's also there, so it's down to a couple of factors. I think, especially at the weekend, I think we lacked a very experienced defender in front of our defence. Stewie Byrne made the point during the commentary on Saturday.
You mean defensive midfielder?
Yeah, but a good, defender that's going to, midfielder that's going to be disciplined. As you say, Jared, defensive midfielder, but also one that's going to be disciplined. Like Jason Malumbi is a good defensive midfielder, but he kept going off on these runs during the game, which Stewie Byrne pointed out during the match. And he said, he was trying to be a box-to-box midfielder, and he was leaving Josh Cullen stranded in front of our defenders, and that was leaving gaps. And that's where Azerbaijan found the pocket to score that goal at the weekend. And you felt that if we had somebody like Alan Brown or Jeff Hendrick sitting in beside Josh Cullen, being disciplined and staying there with him and keeping as a pair instead of, going off on these little wandering around the field when the kind of fancy took him. I don't know if you saw that video after the goal we scored against the Portuguese. And it was interesting hearing Jeff Hendrick during the audio of that. We kept saying, stay. It's a different aspect of the game where they were all celebrating. Hendrick was saying, look, stay here, lads. We're going to waste a couple of more seconds with this celebration before we go back, killing a bit of time. And I think that gave you a bit of an insight into Jeff Hendrick, and that he's got that experience of playing at this level in these big games. He knows these little, just these little tricks and things during the match just to kind of keep, to give us those little bits of advantage during a match. So I think having an experienced midfielder in there is really key. I don't think Hendrick's going to start tonight. It does look like he's going to go with Alan Brown, I think, and Conor Harahan in midfield, which I think is a little bit disappointing with Cullen as well, because I thought Jamie McGrath did really well against Portugal last week, and I just don't know why a player comes in like that, plays really well, and he's left out. Similarly, I think with Omar Bamadelli, he showed last week that he was, well able to handle himself at this level. I just couldn't understand why he was left out at the weekend against a team like Azerbaijan, where you think he would have been able to really handle himself. But I think he is going to stick with that back three, and he's going to stick Omar Bamadelli in there today with Duffy and Egan, and perhaps have James McLean, as he was at the weekend, playing left wing back, and Matt Doherty as the right wing back. And then he'll most likely play in midfield Cullen, Harahan and Brown, with the two strikers being Callum Robinson alongside Adam Ida as well.
I mean, it's pretty exciting. If Brown plays as well as we know he can, and if Callum Robinson is fit, So, I guess some of the decisions they're making are stuff that we're not privy to, and they're based on the stats in training, and they're based on the stats that they've got from the club saying he's at 40%, he's at 70%, he's at 90% capacity. You have to assume that that's the decision making around somebody like McGrath, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. I can
because otherwise it doesn't
that.
make any sense. You're right.
Yeah, definitely. Well, look, Ger, take for instance, I thought one of the frustrating things at the weekend was, listen, you've been interviewing John Giles for years, Ger, and one of his key philosophies in football is you play your best players in their best positions. And one thing that really frustrated me at the weekend was Troy Parrott. This fella's got bundles of talent. We know that. He's found a new lease of life going out and loading MK Dons. Perhaps not at the level we'd like to see him playing at, but he will get up there eventually, I think. But why was he playing on the right wing? I've seen Troy Parrott playing, for the under-21s. I've seen him playing club football. His best position is either as the, central striker, which is, not his best position. His very best position is playing in that pocket behind the striker as the number 10 in a 4-2-3-1 formation. He's not built to play on the wing. So why was he playing there? Troy Parrott, even you take the goal, one of the goals he scored against Andorra, he got into that little pocket on the edge of the D and scored from that range. And I just thought that's where we need to be getting Troy Parrott in that game during Azerbaijan. I just found it really frustrating. As well, I find James McLean is, he's been such a great servant to us, and he can be, when he's playing really well, he can be a very good player. But he's been asked to play this wing back role, which is, it's not James McLean. Like James McLean playing his best football as an attacking winger, not as a man who's being, loaded with defensive responsibilities as well. And we saw him at the weekend getting forward. He's putting in a lot of crosses, but a lot of those crosses were hitting the first man, which are no use really. And so you want to see a player like that as a flying wing back to be getting to the byline and pulling the ball back and getting the ball into a good position for the strikers to run onto. So I just feel there's been a lot of, Stephen Kenny doesn't know his best team, I don't think. There's been just so many changes from match to match. And that doesn't help with our defensive record, which I mentioned, which has been poor so far.
So 4-4-2 for you gets our best players in the team in their best positions more often?
I know I'd say 4-2-3-1, I think, because I do think we need to load up that central midfield area. And if you've got your two holding midfielders and your number 10 then who can drop back to help them out. And Kenny went with that formation originally, but then he seemed to, I thought the back three worked well against Portugal because he said himself before that Portugal game that he went to Munich to watch Germany against Portugal in the European Championship. And as we all saw, that formation worked for Germany and for us as well to a certain extent. You had 5 attackers going up against that Portugal back four. So you always had an overload on whatever side. And now Azerbaijan was different because we were playing against a side that were really defensively good. This is the thing that's been forgotten about as well. Azerbaijan were really, really good from a defensive perspective. Every time we got that ball forward to Conley or to Parrott or to Ida, they were surrounded by 2 or 3 red shirts. It was impossible for them to find any space. They were pushed up against that Azerbaijan defensive line and they just couldn't find any room to play. Whereas if you had got those players dropping back, try to draw Azerbaijan out and then get space and get balls over the top for them to run onto, you might be onto something. But Saturday was just so frustrating because there were so many things I thought that were happening during the game that could have been remedied that just weren't being fixed.
You mentioned that game that Kenny went to watch in the Euros, the Germany-Portugal game, and it did seem that Portugal's weakness was with regards to Germany's wing backs. But I wonder, is there a case, it's not a case, it's almost a fact that Ireland's best players on that night against Portugal were their 2 wing backs. When you have Seamus Coleman and Matt Doherty in those positions, you're probably going to try and utilise them as much as possible. Even when Coleman comes back, is the future for this team Matt Doherty at left wing back and Seamus Coleman at right wing back?
I think you've hit on a good point there, Owen, because before the game against Azerbaijan, Matt Doherty was asked about this and he said the reason he felt he was successful in that position and why he liked playing there himself was that he felt that the pitch really opens up for him, because then he's playing on that left-hand side, but he can play with both feet. So it means then he can go either side of the defender, which makes it really hard to defend against for the opposition team. So you're kind of thinking, well, maybe that's what we need to do. Can we not play somebody on that right-hand side instead of Seamus Coleman, and keep Matt Doherty on that left-hand side where he has shown against the top side that he can cause problems. And, surely Stephen Kenny, spoke to Matt Doherty about this. Surely the coaches have spoken to Matt Doherty about this. And that's another frustrating thing as well. It's just, I don't know. I don't know. Like I'm sure there is some, rhyme or reason to this from Stephen Kenny's point of view. But when you've got a threat like Matt Doherty, and like that's the best performance we've seen Matt Doherty probably since he was at Wolves, because he really has stagnated since he's moved to Tottenham Hotspur. He's only played 2 matches for them in the Conference League this season. He came off the bench in 1 match in the Premier League. So all of a sudden he gets put into this position on the left wing, and the game just opens up for him, and he plays tremendously well. So when you found something that's worked for you like that, why not stick with it?
All right, Stephen, give us your prediction. You were, I should tell everybody that you were completely accurate. You predicted a 2-1 win for Portugal against Ireland. You said Portugal going to be a bit blunt up front, and you thought Ireland would score, and all of that came to pass. Probably not in quite the exact fashion that you envisaged it, but
yeah.
What's going to happen tonight?
I heard Dion earlier predicting a 1-1. I was kind of thinking, I've kind of feeling a 1-1 the last 24 hours, but the more I think about our poor defensive records and the changes in defence happening so much, and what Serbia have up front and some of the players that they've got around the strikers, I think we could be in for another night of pain. I think we could get beaten 3-1 here tonight.
All right, Stephen, on that note, we'll tune in this evening, and maybe it's better to listen rather than watch. Good stuff.
Thanks,
Stephen, Doyle on commentary duty tonight alongside Stewie Byrne.